Hey guys, good to be with you again today for our daily devotional as we are in Matthew chapter 20, verses 26 through 28. And the two verses that we're looking at are just at the end of Jesus trying to make a very important point. So for us to understand the weight of what Jesus is trying to get the disciples to understand, we need context. And I don't think it's an accident that Matthew frames this account that we're looking at of the two brothers right after Jesus had told the disciples he was going to be delivered into the hands of the Gentiles. He was to be condemned, mocked, flogged, and eventually crucified. Jesus was revealing to the disciples that he was going to be performing the ultimate act of servanthood. And in Matthew's account, it was right after this revelation from Jesus that we see the two brothers, James and John, show that servanthood was the last thing on their mind. And I think Matthew did this on purpose to contrast the heart of Jesus, even as he was going to his death, with the heart of his imperfect disciples, the ones he was training up. And we know the story. The mother of James and John brings them before Jesus and requests that they sit at the right and left hand of Jesus. Now, to her credit in her request, there is some good we can see. The mother had ultimate faith in Jesus. She was completely convinced and sold out about the reality of the kingdom that Jesus was talking about. The bad is the fact that she was focused first on her son's glory in the kingdom and not Jesus' glory. And we know that when the other 10 disciples hear this conversation, Scripture says they became indignant. The Greek word used here for indignant, aganakteo, means it wasn't a righteous anger, but it was more of a jealous anger. And so how does Jesus respond to this? You know, when I was thinking about Jesus' response, it made me think of how poorly I would have responded. I would have looked at the guys with anger, and I would have been like, fellas, I'm going to the cross. I'm going to die and suffer and experience God's wrath, and you're arguing about which one of you gets the greater glory? And as usual, in the tremendous grace of Jesus, he focuses on them and uses it as a wonderful teaching moment. So starting at verse 25, he says, "But Jesus called them to him and said, 'You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many.'" The Gentiles were domineering, oppressive, and even tyrannical with how they wielded their authority. And this was not the model for the disciples. This was actually the antithesis of how the disciples were to act. According to Jesus, the greatest in the church was going to be the one with the biggest servant's heart. And Jesus actually goes a step further by saying, whoever would be first among you must be your slave. This means that whoever wants to be first needs to make themselves a slave to the brethren. Genuine followers of Jesus don't grab for the glory. They're more concerned with humbling themselves and being a servant to others. And verse 28 really solidifies all of that for us. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. Think about the importance of that statement. There were only a few times through the Gospels where Jesus explained why he came into this world. In Luke 19, he says that he came to seek and save that which is lost. In John 10, he says that he came that they may have life and have it abundantly. In John 18, when he was standing before Pilate as he was on trial, Pilate asked him if he was a king. How did Jesus respond? "For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth." And now in Matthew, we see here in verse 28 that Jesus gives a different reason for why he came into this world. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. So many things we could take away from these two verses today, but I'm going to challenge you with two. First, if you were to look at your life as a believer, would you say that your heart reflects that of Jesus in how you choose to serve others? Really, what I'm asking is, do you have a servant's heart for the people of God? And to be clear, none of us are perfect in this area, right? But if you find that you see yourself maybe falling short in this area, here's my encouragement. First, bring it to the Lord and ask for forgiveness. And then ask the Lord to grow you in this area, which really means you're praying that the Lord gives you opportunities to serve others. And lastly, I want you to think about your church. Who would you say in your church lives in such a way that really shows they have a heart like Jesus with how they serve others? Maybe next time you get a chance, you can encourage them by letting them know you see that servant's heart in them. All right, guys, God bless. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.